So thank you all for coming again. My name's Molly. I'm one of the materials specialists. And this is our CEU, Light Manipulating Materials, Engaging, Biophilic, and Sustainable. So this does offer you AIA, IDCEC credits. Our learning objectives for the course are comparing and contrasting different types of light manipulating materials in terms of how exactly they manipulate light, how they interact with light in different ways. We'll talk about how the materials maximize and extend ambient lighting in a room, how the substrates work, the different sustainability attributes, performance abilities of the different substrates. And we'll talk about how the materials incorporate biophilic design, which contributes to occupant well-being. So light contributes to both our health and our happiness. The poem shown here was the inspiration behind all of these materials. It is describing the interplay of light and shadow inside of a bamboo forest. And you can picture the poet moving through the forest, and as she moves, the bamboo stalks around her also shift and create a sort of dappled, changing light and shadow on the ground. It was this sort of connection between occupant and environment, like the responsiveness of light, shadow, movement, color, that led to the creation of these materials, light manipulating materials. They have internal channels creating different patterns inside of them. And they use those internal channels sort of like fiber optics. They pick up light, reflect, redirect it, transpose it in different ways. And in that way, they are able to create sort of a living surface that shifts with changes in the environment, with the people around it, much like the bamboo forest and the poet moving through it. There are a wide variety of applications. We'll go through lots of slides, so you'll see all kinds of examples. Pretty much anywhere we want to have that interplay of light and shadow. Screens and dividers, feature walls, countertops, floors, all very popular. Signage, also very popular. Like I said, I'll show you lots of examples. Now, in addition to applications, aesthetics, the materials are also designed to contribute to well-being of occupants in different ways. And their production is sustainable, not detrimental to the environment. In terms of environmental impact, all of the materials are made using maximized amounts of recycled content, sometimes up to 90%. It depends on the batch. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. All of the machinery involved in producing them is also optimized, things like a closed loop gray water recycling process. So very little water is actually used because it just gets reused over and over. Typically, the materials are also made custom to size. So there's little waste, not a lot of things being thrown out. And then the little extra that is made is usually put into the sampling program. The materials have received HPDs, recycled content certifications. They are also on the SCS Green Product Guide and the Mindful Materials database. Now, in terms of benefit to occupants, we'll talk about three different kind of prongs. First is exposure to daylight and ambient lighting, which has been shown to have positive cognitive, physiological, psychological effects. The materials are designed to move light around a space. The presence of beauty and artwork has been shown to enhance mood and morale, so that is another element of well-being in a space. We also have biophilia. Biophilia is, of course, the notion coined by Edward O. Wilson that people seek out natural patterns, things that remind them of nature, things like textures, colors, and so forth. All of these are designed with that in mind, the idea of emulating the movement of the bamboo forest and so forth. Some of them are more obvious than others, but I'll show you examples. And biophilia has been shown to provide you benefits to productivity, circadian rhythms, memory, adaptability, patient recovery times, and so forth. The importance of design that benefits occupants and is sustainable, of course, is promoted by different building certification programs. LEED, WELL, those are probably the two biggest. So we'll be talking about some credits with those. And there's others, of course. Speaking of LEED, though, there are credits for biophilic design. So the idea behind getting these kind of credits is that you have to use a certain amount of biophilic design strategies. So we'll go through different types of these strategies and how they can be incorporated into the materials. First, we have a visual connection with nature. I'm hoping that you can see that this is actually an artwork piece of a bamboo forest. So this is kind of an obvious connection with nature. You can also do other types of views, something a little more abstract. But visual connection with nature has been shown to offer benefits to blood pressure, as well as increasing engagement in a space. Then we have non-rhythmic sensory stimuli. That refers to a little more abstract things, natural patterns that you see occurring outdoors, things like the glistening of the light on waves, or the shifting movement of the grass in the breeze, these sort of repeating patterns that you see. These have been shown to positively affect your nervous system activity, as well as increase attention span. Next, we have presence of water, and this one I will light up for you, so I hope you can see it from there. So obviously the idea of water. Water increases tranquility, it helps with concentration and so forth. A lot of these can also be used with actual water, or you can have this simulation of water with lights, movements, colors, and so forth. Then we have dynamic and diffuse lighting effects. This one is a little bit small, but I think you'll tap out this way, be able to see. So different amounts of translucency in a space, allowing for the appropriate amount of light to reach the eye to avoid glare and so forth. This helps stabilize mood as well as create interest in a space, can assist with privacy as well. Biomorphic forms and patterns. This is, again, going back to things that you see in nature. Again, I'm hoping you can see this as a maple leaf inside. Excellent. So natural textures, animal skins, leaves, plants, and so forth. These have been shown to create a positive mood in people in general. Like I said, seeking out natural patterns and such. Related to that is complexity and order, the idea about symmetry that you see in nature, fractals. This one is actually a Fibonacci sequence, a spiral based off of the Fibonacci numbers. And you see that in things like nautilus shells, sunflower seeds will grow like this, and so forth. And that gives you a positive physiological stress response. Lastly, we have the ideas of refuge and mystery. These ones are probably a little more self-explanatory again. Materials that can allow for a safe withdrawal, creating a private space in an area while still allowing for a visual connection between areas, for light to stream through, and so forth. So that's an important element of many of the designs. And then mystery, just the interesting ways that these manipulate light, the glittering, the translucency and so forth, bring people into a space, engaging with them, interacting with the environment. So we will go through the course, talk about all these different elements, sustainability, beauty, light, and biophilic design, and how that benefits occupants of their environments. We'll start off by talking about the different types of materials, and by type, what I mean is what they do with light, how they manipulate it. First type is our interactive materials. So these materials have internal channels inside of them, and they are using those to move light and shadow around inside of themselves. So the material takes in my movement, and the movement goes through the little loop and comes out unexpectedly in another spot. And that's how they create this sort of glittering effect inside of them as they are touched or people pass by them. This is all done, this might be easier to see. This is all done without any special lighting. There's no power involved in here. There's no wires or anything like that. It's just an inherent property of the material. So it's all very low tech, honestly, but very high impact. It has that very fun effect inside, creating that kind of interactive living surface. And those are the materials that were originally sort of designed based off of the idea of moving through the bamboo forest and seeing the environment interact with you. Next, we have light filtering materials. These are made with internal channels, but they're built a bit different. I'll show you both of these at the same time so you can see. There's a variety of types. Some of them are very busy. Some of them are, more open. These are meant to reflect and refract light in different ways to create that kind of crystalline, glittering surface inside of them. So these are, again, meant for generally ambient lighting. People do different things with lights, but it's meant for just kind of a low-tech environment. You don't need to do any upkeep on them. It is all internal, all of the texture that you see inside. So smooth, non-porous surfaces. Like I said, you can pour water down them and it's fine. Easy to clean and maintain, but with that interesting depth inside. So as light passes through these materials, it undergoes a variety of different phenomena. Reflection is probably the most obvious. They're very shiny, sparkly, almost sort of metallic or mirror-like inside of them. This can be adjusted. I think the sample that you have actually has maybe a matte or a frosted finish, so it's got a little bit of a softer look, but it's the same idea, just different amounts of diffusion of light and reflection of light. Since the internal channels do act like little mirrors, they do create a shadow on the other side. I think it's going to be hard to show you from all the way up here, but if you come up later, you can take a look at these and see, and you can see in that third image there, it creates kind of a dappling light across the ground. Kind of like a canopy of trees, creates that sort of texture effect on the ground. There are a wide variety of patterns here. You have the more grid-like ones. You have these organic options. You can adjust these very precisely, make them bigger, smaller, thicker, thinner. You can even do patterns that go across multiple different panels for very large installations. So they'll be seamlessly transmitted through. Speaking of transmitted, transmission of light is an important element as well, since these are filtering light in different ways. So different amounts of opacity and transparency throughout the surface. And that can be controlled as well, so you can have more visual connection between spaces or less. People will also do lighting with these. Like I said, you don't have to, but people do backlight them to create cool effects inside. And the nice thing about the backlighting is First of all, the light does travel all around the material. It goes through it, but it also kind of bounces around. So it's emitting from more than just one little spot on the material. And secondly, you can do all kinds of fun things. You can do RGB lighting, projections, videos, and so forth. Put that guy down. Refraction is an important element of design for these. Again, I'm usually doing this on a camera, so I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see, but I'm hoping you can. So refraction causes sort of an optical illusion behind the material of objects disappearing or appearing larger or smaller, distorting objects behind it. This allows for more privacy in an environment, more visual interest throughout a space. This also will sometimes create a prism effect, so it will split the light into its component wavelengths. So that's hard to show you just in general, but I've seen it done, especially with windows, like it will split up the sunlight and create kind of the rainbow effect. Scattering and diffusion of light. I talked a little bit about, especially with your little sample, you probably can see some of that. The materials break up direct light into smaller, softer rays. So you can see a little bit more kind of a fuzziness to them, giving it a little bit of a softer glow inside. And that's what you're seeing in both of those images, the kind of frosted effect to diffuse light, a little bit of a gentler look. Okay, all of that was the light filtering. I'm going to scooch these a little bit out of my way, and I can show you the light emitting. So the light filtering and the interactive, these were just mostly ambient lighting, no special effects involved. These ones, on the other hand, are designed to be lit directly. So generally that is edge lit. Let me show you this one first. So it can also be backlit, which I'll show you in a little bit. But the edge lighting is kind of typical. There's a strip light of LEDs along one or more edges. And that will travel across through the material inside of those internal channels for long distances. So lighting up one of these, you can light 4 or 5 feet from one edge. So if you had a full 10-foot tall panel of this, you could have lights on top and bottom, even illumination throughout the entire piece. I'll show you a couple other colors too. How about that one? You can also do RGB. So these are designed for the internal channels to act sort of like lenses, kind of picking up and scooping the light inside of them. It's meant for very large installations, or of course it can also be accent lighting as well. Since we're incorporating directed light into the equation, we have more options for design. RGB, RGBW, programmable, flashing, moving lights, all sorts of things that you can do, and that will kind of affect the appearance of the material itself. Let me show you this one as well. So you can create, the idea of light and color, and really tune it very precisely, like if you had a specific color that you were looking for. The material itself can also be a color. So this one, of course, has a golden sort of hue, and then combined with the light, you can do all sorts of different combinations to create those effects. The channels inside are arranged into patterns. These ones that I have up here, most of them are just random pattern. That's just kind of the popular option. But you can do things like grid or progressive. This piece that I showed you earlier, the Fibonacci, is actually light emitting. Let me give white light, there you go. And you can customize it as well. The quality of the light being emitted from the surface of the material depends on the surface texture. Some of them are going to be clear, so they have a very sparkly look, you know, almost like little bits of light are kind of trapped inside. Others, like this one, has more of a texture. It's kind of a ribbed, so it has a little bit of a diffuse effect, sort of a fuzziness inside of it. This one that I had just shown you is a frosted, so it has a little softer again, a little bit more diffusion. So that can be fine-tuned. And then for the backing, you can do these ones that are transparent, but there are also options to do opaque. And that's good for feature walls, signage, counterfaces, anywhere you don't need to see through the entire material. There are a few special variations on the light emitting. Again, hoping that you can see this well. So this is an infinity effect light emitting material. It's got that same structure, internal channels, light from one or more edges, but this one, the light is bouncing around a lot inside. So it's creating the idea of depth in a very thin profile. Normally, an infinity mirror is going to be several inches thick. This one is probably about 5/8 of an inch. So it can be fit into a lot of tight spaces. I've been showing you this edge lighting effect. Like I said, this is sort of the standard. The advantage to the edge lighting system is twofold. First of all, you're using less lights overall. You don't have to light the whole square footage. It's just one or two edges. And then secondly, the light is never blocked off or held down by the material. So the strip light goes just in a little channel, and the panel goes on top. You install this big, heavy 10-foot panel. 10 years down the line, the LEDs finally go out. You don't have to take the panel off and disassemble the whole thing. You can just slide the lights out because they're just resting underneath. So ease of access and maintenance. I did mention that I was going to show you the backlit. Let me grab my white light again. Backlighting can also be done. This is another kind of infinity effect, but this one is a little more customized. It's meant to look like a galaxy, like a nebula inside. That's just, it depends on the design and the space and the type of lights and so forth. There are also a couple of special options. For example, in this picture, and I believe, have one of these hanging up in our little showroom space as well. The light is in the middle in the back, so it's creating that kind of a line down. And then there are prisms built into the material to move the light to either side. So it just depends, like I said, on the design and on the environment and the space. Okay, so that is how they use light, what I mean when I say light manipulating. Next, I'll talk a little bit more about the 3 different substrates. Just like there are 3 different material types, interactive, light filtering, light emitting, there are also 3 different substrates, and that would be resin, which is PMMA acrylic, glass, which is glass, and then the terrazzo, which is a fine concrete mixture with those embedded channels. All of these different substrates have their own properties, different thicknesses, different weights, and so forth. They are all good acoustic barriers. They have decent sound transmission coefficients, generally between 38 and 40 for all of them. So let's start off talking a little bit about the resin. You were mentioning fire, like flame spread and stuff. Resin is going to be a class C or sometimes a class B fire rating, which is pretty good, but you wouldn't set something on fire right on top of it. It is extremely flexible. It can be very thin, like this one that I had shown you, 5/8 of an inch. This one is resin. It can also be made into shapes. So you can do things like curves, edges, drop downs, corners, boxes, all sorts of different options. Here's my corner. Little tiny corner. This is the same type of material, PMMA acrylic, that is used in airplane windows. So it is very lightweight, but it is also very resilient. This one's, of course, nicer optical quality than most airplane windows. And the resin is also going to have the most amount of post-consumer recycled content, up to 90% post-consumer recycled content. In some cases, it depends on the batch. It is, like I said, non-porous, face and back all non-porous. Edges can be sealed against moisture, so it can be used in wet environments like pools, for example. Another nice aspect of the resin is its ability to be matted. The matte surface finish, it looks sort of like a frosting. It gives you a little bit more of a diffuse effect inside. But the thing that differentiates it from the frosted is that the matting is actually done by hand, using a hand sander, or even like a common scrubbing pad. So if you install this in a very busy environment, like, for example, a bar, it gets a lot of use. Maybe it gets a little bit scuffed up after a while. You can remat it at any time. You don't have to uninstall or anything. You just take the scrubbing pad or sandpaper, and that any scuffs will disappear. So it's sort of a renewable surface finish. Oh, the resin can also be used indoors and out. For the most part, some of the really reflective ones are not recommended for outdoors, but this one, you know, the transparent ones, these are all fine. It's all UV stable, non-yellowing. It's undergone accelerated weathering testing, so it had 10 years simulated in the Florida sun, and there were no visible changes to it at all. Okay, next substrate is our glass. Glass has a lot of similar characteristics to the resin. It looks pretty similar. When you touch it, you can tell it is heavier, it is thicker. Glass is generally going to give you a higher fire rating. Glass is going to be class A, which is very good. It's used in cruise ships, elevator cabs, that sort of thing, where they need that very high fire rating. The glass and the resin, but the glass in particular, is laminated together. It's made in layers. So it qualifies for safety glazing. It can be used for things like balustrades. You can stand on top of it if you want. So it's very rigid, extremely durable. There's also a couple more options in the glass for outdoor use. More of the mirrored glass can go outdoors than the resin. It is also all, again, UV stable, non-yellowing. Lastly, the terrazzo. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a fine concrete mixture that is embedded with those optical channels, and those are made out of resin. So it's a composite material. Just like regular concrete, it's extremely durable. It can be used for things like floors, stairs, countertops, walls, so forth. It is non-flammable because it's concrete, and it can be used in wet environments because it's concrete. You can also make it into shapes. Just like the resin, you can do curves, drop downs, boxes, and so forth. That's actually what our little cube light that we're raffling off is made out of. It's the concrete. This one is a nice little drop down. A lot of times this is integral. It's built in, so there's no seams here. And this is also actually a lit one. Let me grab this one. So this one lights up from behind. The terrazzo will also contain post-consumer recycled content. It actually contains some slag, which is sort of the leftover material, so it's kind of being reused, recycled. There are options for interior use and exterior use. That depends mostly on the thickness that can be used. Outdoor tends to be thicker, as well as the type of channel inside. There's a couple different shapes and sizes. So there's, for example, this one has the round versus this one has the rectangle, and so forth. All of these substrates are low emitting, or technically no emitting. So they've been tested for volatile organic compounds. There's no weird off-gassing either during their production or just during their life cycle. So that is important for things like environmental air pollution, which can be very dangerous over long periods of time. And you can see they allow you for LEED and WELL credits for that. They also all have life cycle information available, EPDs and HPDs. So you can see where the raw materials come from, what they go through throughout the machining process, the manufacturing process, all the way through to end of use. Oftentimes they are made for long-term use in buildings, but there are things to like reuse or recycle as well. Raw materials, I've talked about the amount of recycled content, generally highest in the resin, but all of it contains some amount of post-consumer recycled content. And I think the average is between 20 and 38%, but it depends on the batch. So it's all made with recycled materials. And then, of course, as I also mentioned, it's generally made to size per project. So there's not a bunch going to waste. There's very little recycling that needs to be done afterwards. Okay, let's talk a little bit about design options now that we've gone through the substrates, the raw materials, and the way that the materials work with light. As I just said, it's a made to size. So it'll be any size. There's no minimum quantity. That said, people do buy sheets and they can cut it themselves, or they'll work the sheet size into their design. For the resin, sheets are generally going to be 4 foot by 8 foot, or sometimes up to 5 foot by 10 foot if it's like an all clear, no color configuration. For the glass, that's a 5 foot by 10 foot. Unless you're sandblasting the glass, that's just a special surface finish, then it's a little bit smaller. And for the terrazzo, you have a couple different options. The most popular is a slab format, which is going to be fairly thick, usually an inch or more, but it's very flexible in terms of how large it can get, up to 4 by 8, sometimes larger, just kind of depends. Or you can do a tile format, which is going to be much thinner, but also more modular, like a 12 by 12 or 12 by 24, that sort of a thing. And that just depends on what kind of design you're looking for. Colors in the material are imparted via the layering. I mentioned earlier that these are laminated, so they're made in different layers, usually 3 or 4. I'm not sure how well you'll see, but this side is the golden side, and then this side is a clear frosted side. So it's combining together to create that soft sort of yellow look. So you can do mix and match, gold and blue, pink and pink, all sorts of different combinations to create the color that you're looking for. There are also customization options, like this is, actually that's not the right one. I'm not sure where the right one went, I apologize. But you can do customization options if you're looking for a specific like paint chip or a Pantone that can be inserted into the material as just another layer to create different effects. In the terrazzo, the color is a part of the mixture, of course, so it's fairly integral. Again, there are a bunch of standard colors that you can pick, or you can also do a custom mix if you're looking for something really specific. The other thing you have for terrazzo is either a non-aggregate, which is this very homogeneous solid color, or you can do an aggregate, which has this kind of a freckling inside. And that can be even this mirror aggregate, which is this one, or just a standard aggregate as well. And that's mostly just a design choice. The aggregate actually increases its durability a little bit as well. Since we are talking about light manipulating materials, the type of lighting that they're in, of course, is important. Ambient lighting is generally enough for the light filtering materials, as well as for the interactive materials. They're just meant for regular old everyday indoor lighting when you're in a room, or just regular day lighting. That said, face lighting can also be very good for these, and that's probably the effect that you're actually getting here, since we have this face lighting.
That doesn't need any backlit
correct.
option, right? So
Correct. You can, but you don't have to. Yeah. So yeah, the face lighting works really well. That's good for like using a point source like these, or like a track light. Backlighting was the one that I was going to talk about next. Let me grab this little tiny guy. So backlighting can be used to create kind of a glow, emphasizing the texture inside, creating that cool effect. It can be used for all the different types. I did also show you this one here that had the backlighting effect inside of it a little bit. Just depends on the design, on the lights. The nice thing about the backlighting is you can do video screens and such, so you can transmit information through it, signage and so forth. And edge lighting we talked quite a bit about. It's standard for most of these light emitting materials. It's different color, please, there. It's convenient because you have that ease of access. It's easy to get to the lighting rather than it being blocked off like it is for backlighting. Generally, edge lighting is going to go into one or more edges. The little samples are usually just one edge, but if you had a bigger piece, you could do top, bottom, side, side, even a perimeter, again, just depending on the design and the size. Some people will also edge light the non-light emitting resin and glass, like this one, for example. And it does create a cool textured effect. It emphasizes that kind of internal structure. For larger installations, this will have a fall off of light. For very small installations like my sample here, you can see it does light all the way through. But in those pictures, you can see kind of a highlight at the edges, and then it has a fall off. And there's some tiny ones. Custom options we also talked a bit about in terms of the resin. You can do thermoforming, curves, shapes. You can also do things like cutouts. And that can often be done during installation. So people will buy just a flat sheet and then route out the cutout, or make the shape themselves. Please sit there. Okay, well. Other custom options, especially for brand identities, signage, you can do shaped elements, stamped, mounted elements. Oftentimes very thin vinyl or metal lettering is added onto the material. One other unique option for the resin is its ability to be fabricated into this flexible fabric-like material, kind of bendable and re-bendable. It's just an option. It allows for unusual surface transitions that you might be working with, very tight curves, and so forth. And it's kind of fun also, just as a toy. You stay. Okay. Etching, surface etching can be done. and that can be to specified fonts or logos, other patterns, pictures that you might have. That's on the resin and the glass. And then on the terrazzo, you don't do etching quite so much, but you can do inlays, and that can be color inlays or textures, patterns. You can even inlay other materials such as brass. Installation, I'm going to go through that fairly quickly, mostly about hardware. The material often comes with the lighting and the hardware. It's all a kit of parts. People do also use their own lights and hardware. That's fine, but you can also get it all together. When you're thinking about installing the materials, the most important consideration is the weight of the substrate. Generally, resin is going to be the most lightweight, and the glass is going to be the heaviest. And then the terrazzo is somewhere in the middle, depending on the thickness. Installation considerations also include opacity, size, of course, thickness. A lot of times these opaque options, like this one, are great to be surface mounted. That's just a real clean, kind of simple install. You don't see the hardware or anything like that. You can also do frames, standoffs. A lot of them can be freestanding, as you have seen some of them standing up by themselves. Just depends, again, on the size and the thickness. More hardware options, J channels, U channels. You can do hanging things with aircraft cables. You can also do operable features like pivots, hinges, slides for things like doors and windows. For projects that have multiple different panels going together, for resin and glass, you can often just butt join the materials together. And the internal structure kind of mitigates the appearance of that seam inside. You can probably see it because I'm shining the light into it right now. But it kind of blends into the material itself. So no special seaming needed for the resin and the glass. And then for the terrazzo, you can use a silicone or a grout. And that can be, you can color match it to, again, kind of mitigate the appearance of the seam. Screens and dividers, an important consideration nowadays. They've popped up everywhere. All of the different substrates and all of the different types can be used to create these. It's good for privacy, sound dampening, as well as safety in general. And sometimes that's incorporated directly into the design, like that big piece. But sometimes it's also added afterwards. So for example, this is just a regular old table that we had, and then adding on the screen with these non-marring brackets. They easily hold it up, and there's a little turn at the corners, so it gives you a little bit more privacy as well. Let's return briefly to the idea of biophilic inspirations. Now that you've kind of seen the materials a bit more, you have seen how they use different patterns, textures, colors, lighting to create different effects. Some of them more biophilic than others. They're all designed with that idea of occupant and environment interacting, light and shadow, and how that affects the environment. So they have that kind of connection with biophilic design. This can be emphasized or de-emphasized. You can do things like changing the amount of pattern inside the material. So you can have something with a lot of pattern. Turn it this way for you. Or a little bit of pattern, you know. Somewhere in the middle, you can have a lot of negative space, kind of openness, a lot of sparkliness, busyness, kind of disguise what's behind it, and so forth. The light shining into the material often creates tears in the material. This way, actually, thank you. So sort of shelves of light as the light enters into the material and is reflected and refracted in these unique ways to create that effect inside. A lot of these were originally designed to be screens and dividers. So again, the idea of physical separation, but visual connection. The light can still travel through them. You're not really in a dark, dim place once you go around the material, but you do still have a little bit more privacy inside. And screening and privacy, we talked about. You can also do different thicknesses of the material to create different effects. So this one is just a very thin option. This one is the same but very thick, creating different looks.
What's the thinnest and the thickest? I mean, what the range?
Yes, thinnest is probably about 1/4 inch. Yes, and that would be something like this. And then most of them are more like 1/2, 3/4. As for thickest, you can go very thick. We've done 2 inches. I think we've done 3 inches. You can. It's easy to do thicker. So, sidedness of the material. So some of the material is kind of the same front and back, but you can have a distinct side. Like this one has different colors to create different effects. And then you've seen, of course, some of these are opaque, and some of them are transparent. The opaque just has a plain backing, and that's, again, nice for when you don't need to see through it, like a sign, you can just mount it up here. Okay, shading and light penetration, we talked a little bit about that. The way that the material is oriented with the light, it can either be, very light, shiny, sparkling, very light penetration, or less light penetration. And that can create different effects across a surface to allow for more shading or less. Diffusion of light, we've also gone through quite a bit. There are different types of diffusion based off of the surface finish, the pattern, the color, and so forth. Pattern prominence can also be adjusted. I was talking about more or less dense. You can also do bigger or smaller. So these two are the same pattern. For example, this one is just kind of the regular size, and then this one is exponentially larger. And you can go bigger, you can go smaller, just depending on the space that you're working with. Put these guys here. Retroreflection also occurs in some of these materials, and that one I would show you. This one. Retroreflection is when light hits a material and is reflected off so accurately that it almost looks as though the material itself is illuminated, but it's just really good at reflecting things. So bike reflectors work this way. This is also actually the moon, is just very, very, very shiny. So it creates that effect. And that allows for more distribution of light in a room as well. Color is a key element to biophilic design. So you can have things that have the color of animals, nature, patterns, water. Diffractive color is often seen in nature. Things like insect wings have that kind of iridescence. A lot of bird feathers will do this as well. Once you see them up close, like a crow has this sort of a rainbow feather inside. This is caused by the light hitting the material or the surface and certain wavelengths bouncing off of it, other wavelengths passing through. It's sort of a selective filter of colors. The unique thing about these materials is that you can use the light, and the internal channels cause the light to bounce off in different directions. So that's how you're getting that rainbow effect inside. There's also things, color strategies in nature like camouflage, hidden color eye spots that you can see from different angles. So that can be replicated in the materials as well. that they appear almost clear in some angles, and then they change the angle and they can become very colorful. That also refers back to the idea of non-rhythmic sensory stimuli, that idea of these patterns that you see, random patterns in nature, like the light glistening on water and so forth. Other than these sort of geometric textures I've been showing you, there are also more obviously organic patterns, things like bubbles, and waves, dewdrops, sleet. These are just very biophilic, just by nature. And they can be scaled up and down, made more or less dense, just like the other materials as well. Mirror plating, we talked a little bit about. I showed you this one. And that can create complexity and order in the material as well, to bring that in as a biophilic strategy, the idea of symmetries and fractals and so forth. Texture, let's talk real quick about. I see we're running a little low on time. Most of these just simulate the idea of texture because the texture is all internal. Some of them do also have a little bit of a bump. If you come and touch this later, you can see it's got a little tactile effect. So either real texture or simulated texture can create things like topographical maps, animal skins, again, natural patterns, and so forth. So that's what you're seeing in that installation. Interlayers, I showed you this one way back at the start. You can incorporate artwork into the materials to create different aesthetics. You can also do interlayers such as wood veneers. So real wood placed into the material, sort of like a little tiny slice put into the layers. Fabrics, smart film, you can do all kinds of different interlayers to create those effects. This one is just an example of artwork incorporated into the material, and you can see that combines with the ores and that kind of shimmering light to create the idea of water for this installation. This was another interlayer. This is more abstract, the kind of undulation of the panels themselves, and the color inside is meant to simulate a sine wave going up and down. Okay, let's scoot through the biophilic solutions, and then we will end with case studies, and I can take a couple more questions. We can take a look around at the samples and such. All right, so we've talked about how the materials incorporate biophilic design in different ways, depending on the colors and the patterns and thickness. The lighting and the hardware is often combined with the material. It's all sent as a kit of parts, so a complete solution. And that allows it to be installed fairly easily, even though the material may seem very complex. It's all put together really simply. Water features are very popular for this sort of solution. Things like either just the pattern and the texture and color, or this piece that I showed you earlier that has the lighting inside to create that effect. Let me give you the white light again. There it goes. So you can merge different types of lights, different types of hardware to create water features. That's just another example. Use also backlighting to create, especially like the idea of moving water shimmering through the material. Artwork, we just looked at a couple of examples. Here's a couple more to create aesthetically unique features, brand deals as well. The edges and the corners, there are options for special edges and corners on the material itself, or the hardware can also be incorporated into that to allow for smoother edges, more put together corners. It can all come together, and the advantage to having it all together as a kit is that it's tested beforehand. So once you get it on site, there's no surprises, hopefully. Wall applications, this is just another example. This is resin, glass, terrazzo, so all different substrates, different shapes, different types, as you can see, to create those sort of central elements in a design. Okay, the last few slides, case studies, real-world applications. First one here is the Toronto Pearson Airport, which is using light filtering material. And you can see the idea behind it is to create that idea of water again. This is kind of close to Niagara Falls. So they had the idea of, as you go down the escalator or the stairs, you're going down the waterfall. So different shades, blues and greens, to create that kind of variegated water, different amounts of that light filtering pattern to create the glimmering. And you can see it's incorporated kind of neatly into the space as well with that sort of a frame and standoff edge gripper system. Bank of America, this is right nearby. So they wanted to have the idea of light as well, but this one, they were using it in a little bit of a different way. This is using edge-lit light emitting panels up across the ceiling to create kind of the idea of a river of light inside. And that is through the entire big, long lobby space. So it also brings a little bit more light into the area as well. And then the lighting itself is, I believe, concealed within that sort of soffit. So it's kind of appearing from nowhere. Lastly, we have the office tower in Houston, Texas. This one probably works pretty well because it's got the nice light in the back. This is one of the wall features, the installations. The idea that they had was to create a real statement look, to be seen from outdoors, especially at night. It's got kind of wall washing in the back for lighting, stacked onto structural glass ribs. It's about 30 feet high, I believe, so multiple panels put together. And it creates that really cool look from the outside, and then as you get closer, you can see a little bit more about how it moves as people come close to it. The idea, again, of dynamic lighting, diffusion of light, mystery, bringing people into the space. And that's it from the outside, so you can see how it kind of creates that statement. Okay?
If you'd like to see their display, it's next door in the Resource Center. And I want to thank Molly and the whole team from Sensitile for coming out today.
Yes, and thank you
Definitely
so much for seeing me.
Take your time and look at the samples.
Yes.
Come up and touch and feel and all of that.
Please.